Hello, Dog Pound. As you've probably heard by now, Seaside Events and the Cleveland Browns have come together to plan the official Browns fan cruise on board the amazing Royal Caribbean Liberty of the Seas, sailing out of Fort Lauderdale March 3rd through the 7th of 2025. I'm Nick Vlinchek, and I can't wait to sail away with you on this second Browns fan cruise. This journey promises fun, adventure. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit of football on the way. For more information, visit brownsfancruise.com and let's gear up to paint the seas orange and brown. And I'm excited today because we are joined by 2015 Cleveland Browns Walter Payton Man of the Year, a 2015 Pro Bowler. So 2015, pretty big year for old Gary. A guy that I remember clicking into my lineups on DraftKings and FanDuel several times during his playing career. Gary Barnidge, how are we doing this morning?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to talk. I mean, I remember there was like a good run of years there with the Browns where they had some top tier tight end production, yourself, Jordan Cameron, being amongst them. What was it like to be in that situation at a time where the Browns might not have been even at the level they're at now?
Yeah, no, it was for me and Jordan because we were really good friends. He's actually a board member on my nonprofit, which we'll discuss later. Uh, we had a really good relationship. But when I was coming in from Carolina to Cleveland, I was told I was going to be given the opportunity to play right away, and they decided to give it to Jordan. So some guys may get upset with that. That's not my demeanor. It's not how I am. I'll just do the best I can for the team, and that's what I took on the pass blocking stuff and run blocking while he was doing the pass catching. But I always had that ability to catch passes because that's why I was drafted at Carolina in the first place. So having that dynamic with Jordan was great, and having watching him go to the Pro Bowl, and then him having some injuries and allowed him to go to Miami, and then allowed me to get the opportunity to start in Cleveland, and then follow that up with the Pro Bowl as well. I think that's just a testament to Jordan and myself, and then the team having confidence in us as tight ends to allow us to put us in positions to make plays.
I think that's a really good attitude to have too. And I mean, we're dealing with a very prolific situation like this going on in one of your former teams right now with the Carolina Panthers, where, they just had to make a decision, a quick decision, in my opinion, but they had to decide that, we picked this guy first last year in Bryce Young, and things have not been going how we want. And so we feel for the best interest of our team and his best interest is best to sit him down right now, let him develop a little bit more and see how things play out. And I think as a player, and humans, we oftentimes get put in situations, it's not as, impactful necessarily to potential earning potential like it is for pro footballers. But we get faced with these decisions a lot in life, and it is very important to decide, like, are you going to kick, scream, and cry about it, or are you just going to say, okay, I'm just going to work harder, change some things about me, or I'm going to lean into a different area of need, like you said you made, and moving more towards the blocking side of things. And that's, an unheralded position. There are a lot of good guys, and it's also very challenging to be able to do both. I mean, like, look at George Kittle. I mean, he is probably the best in the league at both of those things at the same time. And one does kind of take away from the other. You have to imagine if he didn't have to block in line and he was more of a receiver, he might be putting up past Travis Kelce-esque numbers. So good on you for that. You spent 5 years with the Panthers out of the draft, come over to Cleveland, spent 4 more years until your career ultimately came to an end. What are some of the most impactful memories you have of being with the Browns during that time?
I think probably the locker room, the relationships that I've gathered and garnered with the guys in the locker room is probably the biggest thing because having that relationship and being able to play with a Hall of Famer in Joe Thomas, having him right next to me on the line and becoming a friend with him where I actually visited him in Germany when he was coaching in Germany this past year. So I went and visited him. So having that type of relationship with them. And then like I said with Jordan Cameron, him being a board member on our nonprofit, like those type of relationships you get, it's so hard to get those in other work environments because like in football you rely so much on the people next to you to be successful, so you get so much of a relationship with them and then you're with them all the time. So that's probably the most impactful on my life that I've had. But like memories on the Browns in general, obviously one was it's always good to win in Baltimore. I know a lot of fans always bring up to me the butt catch and all that kind of stuff to me, but I always tell them the only thing that mattered about that game was winning in Baltimore because that's a thing that didn't happen very often. And it's a big rivalry in general just because Cleveland lost their team to Baltimore and then had and got it back. So that's always going to have a special place, is always winning in Baltimore.
So you mentioned Baltimore, and we know that the AFC North is just a very, it seems like it's always competitive, but there's just all of these very bitter rivalries. And I don't know if the question I'm going to ask is going to be one of those teams or if you have a different perspective, but I always like to ask guys, let's say you get off the field on Sunday, you're coming off a win and you're looking at the schedule for next week. Was there a specific team, or maybe for you positionally as a player, like you saw that there was going to be a, defensive lineman or linebacker that you knew, like, okay, I'm going to have to raise my skill level. This, like, I have to, if I'm always giving 110, I have to figure out how to go above that because I need to look good and I need to do a good job to give my team the best chance of winning.
So it's funny because I never thought that way when it came to defenders. I never worried about what the defense was going to do or a defensive player because I always had enough confidence that it didn't matter who it was. I'm still going to be able to get open and make plays. So that didn't, I never worried about the defender guy. Mine was more, it was Pittsburgh, but it was more for a different reason because one of my closest buddies from Carolina, D'Angelo Williams, was the running back of Pittsburgh when I was playing them. So just having that rivalry, now we never win against each other, obviously, because we're both on offense, but just having that banter back and forth each week. And I would tell them, hey, you better tell your Pittsburgh guys to step up because I'm going off on them. And I did multiple times. So like that, and then he would try to pump them up and all that kind of stuff. So I think that was a fun aspect but it was for separate reasons. It wasn't nothing to do with the defense or the rivalry. It was because of one of my buddies was on the other team.
I think that's interesting. I talked to Joe Schobert a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how before they played the Patriots, and now that I'm thinking about it, I actually might have been to that game. But you get on the field and you're like, oh my God, there's Tom Brady, and this is Tom Brady, and he's the greatest of all time. But when the ball was snapped, it's just like, no, he's just another football player. He's at the top of the pile of talent in terms of football players, but at the end of the day, he's still a guy I have to compete against, and I can't sit there and be shell shocked at the guy across the field from me. Now, it's obviously different for someone like you. You've played at three levels where you've ultimately probably played at the top of the competition of all of the people that you've played. So you've grown up sports playing that level of people. Whereas if it's someone like me and I get on the field, it's like, oh my God, it's Tom Brady. It would be a different perspective. So it's always great to hear D'Angelo Williams mentioned. That was one of my favorite guys. I loved watching him play. Um, so now we have 2022. Oh my gosh, 2020. What year is it? 2024 Cleveland Browns. I don't even know what year it is anymore. But off to a little bit of a shaky start. I think that there were definitely questions coming into the season, but I think there were also expectations. And I'm sure you've been in those situations as well, where you're on a team and, you know, you have certain expectations of what is supposed to happen on the team and it's not coming together yet. What kind of advice do you have for like the modern day Browns, the guys who are on the team who might be coming off of an unfortunate loss and what how to get their head back into the right space coming into the next week?
Yeah. So I think the best advice I could probably give is just you can't let the a bad outing or a bad game fix and destroy the rest of your season. Every team has a bad game at some point during the year. And the good thing is, hey, maybe it was the beginning of the year for Cleveland. So knock it out now, and then now you just build up and you continue to get better. And I think a lot of things will get a lot better in general for Cleveland. I think if Nick Chubb comes back and when he comes back, because the offense definitely revolves around Nick Chubb, and he is such a tremendous talent. And I know the team's looking forward to getting him back, and just hopefully he can come back and be 100% healthy too.
Yeah, I think it's a has to be a little bit of a tough situation to be, on a team that I think people felt like this is a playoff team. And it's by no stretch of the imagination are we saying 3 games into the season that all hope is lost. That's not the point here. It's just how people rebound from it. And I think that's good insight to kind of have, because it's very easy in life when things don't go your way, and it seems like it happens more often than not, to just want to like lay down and quit. But this is not an arena where that is going to be allowed. Like, if I do it in my job, I'm going to disappoint people. But you guys have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who are like, I wait for every Sunday to be able to sit down. And so it's just this pressure that I don't think that an average person really gets to experience in life. How does something like that, like, is that something that's in the back of your mind, or when you're in that position? Because I've never been an athlete, or at least not one at a high enough level that I've had those types of concerns. Is that something you think about, or what would your mindset? How would you frame your mindset to move ahead and work with your team to kind of get through those tough times?
So unfortunately, we had quite a bit of tough times, but I think something that I learned from Joe Thomas was you can't worry about anything else. All you can worry about is the next week. And I know that's very, very cliche, and coaches say it all the time, but that's truly all you can worry about, because all it takes is getting a win the following week, and then now you're on a roll. And then now everything starts clicking. And that's all it takes is getting one really good week put together from all phases, and then it just continues, and then that's what you just build off of. You build off the positives, and you can't keep thinking about the negatives that happened.
I think that's really good advice, and I think that that's something that they can use this week to kind of power ahead as they move into a meeting next week. I think they play the Raiders next week, so that should be a good opportunity for a good bounce back. Now, we've talked a little bit about your football career, and you sound genuinely excited and passionate about what you're doing outside of football now. So do you want to talk a little bit about your nonprofit and any of the other things you're up to in
Yeah,
2024?
yeah. So I have basically two things I've been really working on a lot lately. Obviously, my nonprofit, American Football Without Barriers, where we go overseas, do free football camps for kids, visit schools, orphanages, and hospitals. We bring about 15 NFL players with us, and we've been to 9 different countries so far. And we always do it in the off season after the Super Bowl, and just give back and try to build the sport internationally. And we don't charge a thing. Everything's always free because we want to help build the sport. We eventually want to get kids recruited from international uh, kids and students, get them a chance to play college football, because all they get to do is watch the sport. And the sport is so much bigger than people realize outside of the United States, and it's continuously growing. I know the NFL is finally tapping into that market. It's about time, because we've been talking to them, telling them they need to get. There's so many people out there, and it's finally growing and getting bigger and bigger internationally. And then also, me and D'Angelo Williams also are a. We started a YouTube type thing that we're working on trying to get a TV show right now called Skeptic. And we do paranormal investigations, Bigfoot, cryptid, aliens, any of it. We go and figure out if those things are real, because I don't believe. As you can see, my
Mm.
shirt says "Make me a believer." I am not a believer. I'm a skeptic. I don't believe in ghosts, Bigfoot, Loch Ness, any of the cryptids. So the whole premise is we're trying to go out there and we do these investigations at haunted locations. We did Mansfield earlier this year in Ohio. And then I go through these investigations. There's the group of us, there's 4 of us, and they're trying to make me a believer. They're trying to make me a believer in the paranormal and then the craziness, the unknown that's out there. So that's the whole premise. And we've released some episodes on YouTube. We're working on another one that releases in the first week in October. And we have about 7 more that will be coming out. And we have another filming this actually weekend coming up.
Wow, that is totally unexpected. From what I know, you mentioned something pre interview, which is always cool. I like to go into these things with like some level of research, but I always like to be surprised too because you get that genuine like reaction. I think that's really cool. That stuff. I don't think I'm necessarily as interested on the ghost side of things, but I've been watching a lot, especially about like Egypt and just the things that we were taught are probably not even remotely close to what actually happened. And just looking at stuff like that and having a somewhat of an open mind, because I tend to be a little bit more like you too, where I'm like, okay, prove it. You really have to prove it to me. I'm not going to just blindly be like, yeah, there's ghosts, aliens, cryptids, Bigfoot, Loch Ness monsters, things like that. But it's really cool to kind of be out there investigating, um, stuff that we don't really know what we know,
Correct.
right?
And that's the whole premise of we're investigating the existence of the unknown. So much that's our little tagline because there's so much out there that the world doesn't know, that we don't know. And I love that you mentioned Egypt because Egypt is a huge passion for me. I've been there twice, and my
Mm,
bedroom's Egyptian themed. Like I
wow.
love the mystique of Egypt because like you said, there's so much we don't know about Egypt. We think we know, but we don't really know. Like we can't right now recreate the pyramids the way they did with their technology that they had. That is fascinating to me that they were able to do that and we can't do that right now with the technology they had during that time. That blows my mind. And if it doesn't, how know how it doesn't blow other people's mind because that is so. That's so. I guess like you said, it opens your mind to so much that could be out there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we could talk like 30 more minutes just on Egypt, but I'll save that for your hopefully a future episode of what you're doing. When you were at Mansfield, did you experience anything like that was close to, not no spoiler alerts, but was there
Yeah.
anything that like kind of caught you off guard and made you think like, well, maybe.
So in all of our investigations, I'll say I haven't. Still a skeptic as of right now on things that have been released. I won't talk about stuff that hasn't been released yet, so people can see. But things happen to our other members. It seems to always happen to other members. It doesn't really happen to me as often or as much. Now, Bobby Mackey's we did, and that one's out. We had this music box that if something goes in front of it, you have like a 15-foot range, it plays music. Well, Bobby Mackey's, I'm sitting there and I have it in the middle of a room, and uh, for the first like 10 minutes, nothing happens. And then it goes off for 12 minutes straight. Now, I can't explain what was setting it off because there's nothing in front of it. It didn't go off for the first 10, it didn't move. So like I couldn't explain it. So I picked it up, turned it around. It only went off facing a certain way. I took it outside. It only went off facing the building. So like things like that I can't explain away as much. Like I try to explain it away, but it's interesting. Like could there have been something there? Maybe. Did it make me a believer? No, because I need more than
Mm.
that. I we sorry about that. We tried to recreate it. We couldn't recreate it. But at Mansfield, that was actually my second time being there because I did an overnight investigation when I was in Cleveland. I brought some of my teammates and we did an overnight investigation there. And I will say some interesting things happened to my partners. For me, it was something that made me jump, but I'm not going to tell you what it is because you got to wait for the episode because I don't want to ruin what happened. It's good.
But we'll make sure people check it out. I'll tell you about a weird experience. I'm not into that stuff because I scare easily. I'm a
Hmm.
40-year-old adult that sometimes when I'm like alone overnight, I'm like, I don't like this. This isn't the greatest thing in the world. But a bunch of my friends and I, at the end of high school, we knew that there was this like old meat packing facility off of one of the roads in our town. And so we walked to it, and you get to it, and obviously it is exactly what you're thinking about. It's like an old, abandoned, beat up building, windows broken, but it still has all of the chains hanging from where they hung meat. So we started to walk in, and like it's complete. And we did this during the day. I would not have done this at night. Um, but I start walking in, and we get like 10 steps in, and it's still like a good amount of feet until we actually get to the that are hanging. And there's a room above. We hear all kind of like movement up there. It didn't couldn't tell you if it was like human footsteps or what it was. And we were like, okay, that was scary. And then immediately afterward, you could hear some of the chains like swing against each other in the back. And I was like, nope, not today, Jesus. I'm out of here. We're going. And that was that. But it was just like frightening. Now, it's not really a ghost story necessarily. It's
Yeah.
like it's some weirdo living in this abandoned building. But it was still one of those things that was like, oh my gosh, like who knows what happened back here. I mean, if you're a sick person, this is the perfect place to do unspeakable things. But needless to say, I've had enough adventure in my lifetime. I'll never be doing something like that again.
Yeah, see, I don't scare easy, so for me, I want to experience. I want to be a believer, so that's the whole premise of it. We're gonna try and see if they can make me a believer.
Well, you can do that for the both of us. I think I'll live vicariously through you. All right, we've got exciting stuff to talk about in the limited time we have left. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but through the 7th, 2025, we will be heading out to sea again. We're going to go to Nassau. We're going to go to the Perfect Day at Coco Cay. That has such a great ring of the, just rolls off the tongue, right? Perfect Day at Coco Cay. Are you an avid cruiser? Have you been before?
Yeah, this is like my 12th, 13th cruise. Maybe more. I may have been on more. I think this is actually my fifth Royal Caribbean, and I've been on like nine or 10. Yeah, so probably like my 15th, 16th cruise total.
Well, is there something you specifically like really enjoy about cruising?
So I think it's the best vacation for the amount of money that you can do because it's all inclusive. Obviously, if you want to get the drink, I don't drink, so I don't care about the drink package. But like in general terms, like it's all inclusive, all the food you want to eat, you got all this entertainment, you got shows. If you want to gamble, you got a little gambling if you want to do it. Like there's so much you can do for the price of it. It's the best vacation. I don't know what else you can do for that price and have all this entertainment because you have pools, you have slides, you have shows every night, you have comedy shows, you have trivia, you have arcades, you have literally everything on this thing. Yeah, some people don't like being on the water, but it is amazing because you don't even feel like you're on the water. You feel like you're on a giant resort.
Yeah, I've never been before. I'm thinking about making the Browns fan cruise this year, my first one. I thought about going last year. My son was 5 at the time, and he was a little inconsistent on what he wanted to do, and he would have to come with us. So I just let my wife go last year. You attended last year, right?
That is correct. This is my
Right. Yeah.
second Browns cruise.
My wife said that you and yours were some of her favorite people to be around. So that's good to know that she had a good time and felt good around you guys. What was the biggest that you feel like really made the cruise last year such a unique experience for the people who went?
I think for the fans, it's a great opportunity to ask all those stories you wanted to hear about. Because I will say basically every player is unfiltered, will give you their complete honest opinion. They're not going to give you the media answers. They're going to give you their honest opinion because it doesn't matter anymore. They're not playing anymore. So they're going to give you what you want to hear and actually give you the full story. Because like I got asked about Manziel and I gave my honest. I think Manziel. I think he should never have played his first year. So like things like that. Like there's things out there like people are afraid to talk about when you're playing and you can't give a real answer, but when they're done, you're going to get the unfiltered real answer. If you want to hear it, they'll tell you because they want to connect with you. They want you to hear the story because it's stuff that they dealt with. They want every fan wants to hear the inside scoop. Well, now you can get that opportunity, and it's a great experience, everybody, because you get to have fun with everybody. You get to meet some of the players you grew up watching, and you get to watch and you just get to mingle with them and see them more than just a football player. You get to meet some of their families. You meet them as a person.
Yeah, I think exactly like you said. When the league is like very directing in what you can say, how you can say, when you can say, and if you fall outside of those limitations, you're going to pay. Not figuratively, literally, right? Like you can't be out there saying, "Yeah, I know we played a good game today, but this guy shouldn't be starting. He needs a little more time to develop." That's not something when you're active you can do, right? So I think it's a unique opportunity that it's a wonder to me that there are not more opportunities. I think oftentimes autograph signings, but there's not really that much time. You're just sign and move on, sign, move on. Okay, thanks. Hey, let me kiss your baby, take a picture. But it's opportunities like this where you could really find out, like, you know, I saw you on TV during that specific situation. What was going on the sidelines? And you can actually talk about it without fear of like the league coming down or even the team coming down on you. So I think that's one of those things that makes it um, really special. Biggest thing that we got too, the alumni loved being around the fans, and the fans loved being around the alumni. The alumni loved being around the alumni. So tell me a little bit about like what that was like for you to be able to be around all of these other players from different generations. Some you've shared the field with, others you've maybe watched when you were growing up.
Yeah, so it was obviously a little comfortable knowing some of the guys that I had played with were on the cruise as well. So having that familiarity with them, but also meeting some of the older guys that I hadn't had the opportunity to meet yet or get to know. So actually learning, and I'm asking questions as well that just like the fans, asking them about situations and things like that. So it's a huge thing for the players as well because it's you're everybody knows about our locker room. You love the locker room as a player. You miss that when you leave. So this is another locker room experience for all the guys. They get to all come together and we all did play the same sport. We all play the same team. So we all have the same experiences and or similar experiences. So it just brings us back to that feeling of being in that locker room again. So that's the same thing I say with AF when we travel for my nonprofit is it's 15 guys from different teams that haven't really met each other, but it's a locker room. So it becomes a cohesive unit again. And then you're just having fun and it brings you back to that feeling again of being in that locker room, being all together. And it's just an amazing experience.
Well, that's awesome to hear. And Gary, I do want to thank you for your time today. It's been awesome to talk to you about Browns football and what you've been up to and the cruise and all that. Before we get out of here, I want to ask you, are you big on social media? And if so, where can people find you?
So I'm on social media. I wouldn't say I'm big on it because I don't post a ton. If I do right now, I've been posting the AFWB and then skeptic stuff, but it's just my name at Gary Barnidge. And then our Twitter is skeptic.unknown. You can go there, follow it, and then it's easy. All the videos will be on there for that. For our nonprofit, American Football Without Barriers.com. That's the website, or AFWBcamps.com. Makes it super easy. And then all those are linked also on my social media, so it's easy to get to.
Tell us the YouTube channel we can find your skeptics information at.
Yeah,
I
so
really want
it's
to check
it's
that out.
skeptic.unknown. You type in skeptic.unknown on YouTube and it'll pull up our page, which is just skeptic. But it's a lot of fun. And D'Angelo does not go into the locations because he is terrified, so he sits in a tent and watches while the other three of us go and do our things.
That's awesome. Well, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Browns Fan Cruise. Hey, Gary, we thank you once again. The rest of you, that's all for today. Remember, the inaugural Browns Fan Cruise, not the inaugural, the second Browns Fan Cruise is setting sail March 3rd through the 7th aboard the Liberty of the Seas by Royal Caribbean. Don't miss this chance to cruise with your favorite Browns alums, Gary, and fellow fans. For all the details and to book your spot, head over to brownsfancruise.com. I'm Nick Valinchak, and I'll see you on board.